A remote farmhouse in Germany. A family of 6 brutally murdered. Eerie footsteps in the snow leading to the house. But none leaving in a mystery that remains unsolved to this day. It was a cold, unforgiving night in March 1922. The small German village of Kaifeck lay silent, buried under a thick layer of snow. But inside a lonely farmhouse, the Gruber family was not alone. For days, they had heard footsteps in their attic, strange whispers in the dead of night. Their farm tools had mysteriously moved, their house key vanished, and an unknown figure had been spotted lurking at the forest's edge. But when neighbors arrived days later, what they found inside the farmhouse defied all logic and sent chills down their spines. The entire family of 6 was dead, murdered, bludgeoned beyond recognition. Yet the killer had stayed in the house, cooked meals, fed the livestock, slept under the very same roof, and then, just like that, vanished without a trace. The Hinterkaifeck farm was home to Andreas and Kazilia Gruber, their widowed daughter Victoria Gabriel, and her 2 children, Kazilia, 7, and Joseph, 2. Also living with them was their maid, Maria Baumgartner. But in the weeks leading up to their deaths, something was off. Andreas, the head of the household, began noticing strange footprints in the snow leading to the house, but never away. Doors creaked open in the night. Unfamiliar voices echoed through the walls. The family's previous maid had quit, terrified, saying the place was haunted. Then, 3 days before the murders, Andreas discovered a newspaper on his porch, one he had never bought. And then, their house key disappeared. Someone was watching them, waiting. And the Grubers? They had no idea their time was running out. On the night of March 31st, 1922, the horror began. One by one, the family members were lured into the barn. Who went first? We don't know. But what we do know is this. They never came back out, bludgeoned with a pickaxe. Their skulls cracked open. Brutally, silently. Inside the house, the same horror unfolded. Maria, the new maid, had just arrived that very day. She never saw morning. Little Joseph, murdered in his crib. But the most disturbing part? The killer stayed for 3 more days. He lived in their home, ate their food, fed their animals, slept in their beds, and then just vanished days later. Concerned neighbors arrived at the farm. The smell of death hung thick in the air. Inside the barn, they found the body stacked together, covered with hay. In the house, cold plates of food on the table, a fire still smoldering in the hearth, but no sign of the killer. And here's where it gets even more terrifying. The autopsies revealed something chilling. Little Kazilia had survived the initial attack. For hours, maybe even a day, she lay in the barn, her tiny hands clutching her torn-out hair, waiting to die. Who could have done this? And why? Police investigated for years, but no arrests were ever made. Many believe the killer was someone close to the family. Perhaps Victoria's secret lover, Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the man rumored to be Joseph's real father. He was the first to discover the bodies, and strangely, he disturbed the crime scene before police arrived. Or was it a vengeful drifter? Maybe it was a former servant who had warned of a ghostly presence before quitting? Theories abound, but one thing remains undeniable. The killer was inside that house before and after murders, watching, waiting, and then, without a single footprint leading away, they disappeared. But here's the most disturbing part. Almost 100 years later, police reopened the case, analyzing old evidence with modern technology, and they found something chilling. In one of the autopsy photos, hidden in the shadows of the barn, there was something they never noticed before. A faint outline, a second pair of eyes, watching, waiting. But whose? What do you think happened at Hinterkaifeck? Was it a secret lover? A family betrayal? Or was it something far more sinister? Drop your theories in the comments, but be warned. Some mysteries are best left unsolved. But here's the thing about secrets. They don't stay buried forever. Months after the Hinterkaifeck murders, a retired police officer named Friedrich Hubner was going through old case notes when something caught his attention. A witness statement, one that had been ignored. A local woodcutter had reported seeing a figure leaving the farm on the morning after the murders. A man dressed in dark, ragged clothes, carrying something long and heavy over his shoulder, something that glinted in the early morning sun. And just like that, he vanished into the woods. This detail was never followed up on. But what if I told you this wasn't the first time someone had seen that man? Months turned into years. The Hinterkaifeck farm was demolished in 1923, and with it, the last physical traces of the crime. But the legend lived on. And in 1925, a young woman named Anna Schreiber came forward with a story that sent shivers through the community. She had been walking along the Hinterkaifeck ruins when she saw something moving in the tree line. A man, dressed in dark, ragged clothes, his face hidden beneath a tattered hat. And then he smiled, not just any smile, a knowing smile, as if he knew a secret the rest of the world had forgotten. Anna ran. She never looked back. But here's where it gets even stranger. That same night, an unmarked grave in the local cemetery was found disturbed. The grave? It belonged to Victoria Gabriel. And no one ever found out who dug it up or why. In 1971, almost 50 years after murders, a letter arrived at the office of a small Bavarian newspaper. It had no return address, no signature. Inside was a single piece of paper, 6 words. I lived in their walls first. The paper was old, far older than the envelope it came in. Police dismissed it as a hoax, but handwriting analysts compared it to old documents from the case, and they found a match. It matched the ledger entries of Andreas Gruber, the father, the man murdered in his own barn. But how? How could a dead man have written a letter? Maybe the answer lies in the hours before the murders. That night, the cows were restless. The dog, usually fierce, whimpered and refused to enter the house. And little Kazilia, the 7-year-old, told her teacher something deeply unsettling at school that day. She said her mother had been talking to someone at the back door in the middle of the night. But when Kazilia looked outside, no one was there. Or at least, that's what she told her teacher. When police found her lifeless body in the barn, they noticed something strange. Her eyes were still open, her mouth twisted mid-scream, and in her tiny hand, a chunk of her own hair. Had she seen the killer? Or worse, had she seen something the rest of us were never meant to see? The house key disappeared. The footsteps appeared in the snow. The newspaper was left behind. The killer stayed behind for 3 days. But what if we've been asking the wrong question all along? What if the real question isn't who killed the Gruber family? But why did the killer wait? What was he waiting for? Or worse, who was he waiting for? Maybe they were never alone. And maybe even now they still aren't. Who or what do you think killed the Grubers? What if we were wrong all along? What if this wasn't just a murder? What if this was an invitation? Drop your theories in the comments. But be careful. Some mysteries are better left untouched. If you made it this far, congratulations. Most people wouldn't dare to look this deep into the dark past. Do you really want to know what lurks in history's shadows? Then hit subscribe, but don't say you weren't warned. And if you found yourself looking over your shoulder just now, give this video a like. It might be the last thing you do before the next mystery finds you.